check out our website. If you're looking for a partner for workshops, whether that's research, which we're known for, design, front-end development, our front-end development director here, please come talk to one of us. And blinkers, raise your hand, you're in the crowd around, so we got design directors and office managers and other people around. So if you're looking for a new role, Blink is also hiring UX researchers, UX developers, UX designers. Please go to blinkux.com and check out what opportunities we have open. They're in Seattle, Austin, Boston, San Diego. We're hiring in all regions right now in a bunch of different roles. In Seattle, we have this amazing event called Convey UX, and we have a huge turnout. You know, some of the best UX minds in the industry are there, and by being here, you might get a discount for going there. At least that's what my marketing meant. So, a few housekeeping things. In an unlikely event that there's an emergency, leave the way you came in. And if you haven't found the bathrooms, they're in the back, and there might even be some other secret bathrooms if the line is too long. So anyway, I want to thank you all for coming out, and let's hear from the people we came to listen to. So thanks very much.
When it comes to the community, we also like to hear about our announcements. And knowing that there's a lot of people from different organizations, and we'd like to know what's going on and what should we be aware of. So in addition to Convey UX, what do you know? What announcements do you have? Raise your hand. Okay. Is anybody looking for jobs? What do you got?
Looking for jobs, recent graduate, UX design program, product site HCI from UCSD.
Okay, so stand up. We've got a new UX researcher outside. Do you have anything? Yeah, why don't you go ahead.
Okay, so the QRCA, which is the qualitative side, which is a lot of marketing, which I know you guys don't like and stuff, but there's an opportunity to attend their conference for free if you're 35 and under. A simple grant application online at qrca.org. It's about a $1,700 value, I think, now for their 3-day conference. It's a lot of skills training and education by thought leaders and big research providers.
Okay. So again, that's QRCA, and they have an under 30 grant scholarship. Oh, under 35 to their conference. So take a look at their website, qrca.org. Okay. Any other job seekers? Say yes. Okay.
Andrea Villa, user experience researcher, looking to stay in San Diego.
You like that? What about jobs? Who's got a job out there that they need to have filled?
Hi, my name is Donnie. I'm a UX manager at American Specialty Health, same company that Ali Hussain is from. So we have openings for UX designer, UX architect, and also I need a partner to manage the team. So another UX manager. So if you guys are interested, stop by and chat with me, Ali, or one of the UX folks at ASH. You could raise your hand. So we're really friendly. So come by, come stop by, and talk to us. So thank you.
Anybody else hiring, looking for great people? Blink is, I know that. Okay. Tonight we've got 4 great people on our board. I would like to actually ask them to introduce themselves, since they know themselves best and they know why they decided to participate in this talk. Our talk is all about where are we going and why are we going there. Also, what do we need to know to prep ourselves to be there? We'll start first with Nate, since Nate's going to be leading our panel. Nate, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're here, and why you decided to lead this panel discussion?
My name's Nate Jensen. I've been with the creative group. If you don't know who that is, then you're not answering my calls. Industry. No, I'm just kidding. Creative group is part of Robert Half. Robert Half International is a specialized staffing firm. I've been there for 2.5 years, specifically in the marketing interactive space in direct hire capacity. So that's what I do now. My background is in marketing communications as a former director at a company in the Midwest, and I got lured into this profession. I honestly have no clue how that happened, but I've enjoyed it ever since. Why I'm here, that might be the biggest question at the end of the evening. I don't know, because these guys are the experts and you guys are as well. So really I'm here to help this along as well as I can. Maybe keep it on track, but we'll see how that goes. But really I like how ideas are connected, and I like how people are connected to ideas that are important to them. And I feel like that's what this community brings to the table from a branding and marketing and product side or design thinking side. So I'm looking to help build up that as much as I can here in the San Diego community.
So the reason why we invited Nate to participate is because every time we have a question about what's going on in the community, what's going on within industry, he has an answer. And he's talking to everybody out there and all the different companies who's hiring. So he seemed like a natural. Now our next speaker is Brant. Brant, can you tell us about yourself and why you decided to participate?
Sure. So Brant Cooper, I thank everybody for coming out. This is amazing. I actually was on a design panel here in San Diego 10 years ago, and I think there was 6 people, including the 5 panelists. So sort of the metamorphosis is represented right here in front of us, having this many people out and a waiting list and all the rest. So I come from the startup world, so I lived through the dot-com boom and bust up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm from San Diego though, moved back down here in 2007, and have been working really hard about building up the San Diego startup ecosystem, and obviously design is a part of that. 2013, I wrote the New York Times bestseller, The Lean Entrepreneur, which combines empathy work with lean startup principles, experimentation, and run a company now called Moves the Needle, and we teach very large enterprises how to act like startups. So really honored to be here and happy to participate. Thank you.
So I'm Sarah Hernholm, and I am the founder of 2 companies, one called WIT, Whatever It Takes, and the other one, Smart City Saturday. My focus is on helping teenagers become entrepreneurs and to help teens launch businesses and come up with solutions to problems facing their city. The main reason, true full transparency, why I'm here tonight is I really respect Chris and what you're doing and what she's doing, and so when she asked me to participate, it was an easy yes. So I think that speaks to the kind of relationships that you build and the kind of things that you put on, and I was honored to be part of it. And I'm excited to be here and to learn from people out there and up here.
Hi guys, I'm Hussain. So I guess I'm the newbie in San Diego because I moved here about 2 years ago from New York. I'm passionate about building communities, especially building young designers, developing them into leaders, because that's what happened with me. I was fortunate to have a community of senior designers and thought leaders in Boston and in New York who helped me with my career. And I've also had a lot of bad bosses and lived through some really horrible corporate experiences, so I wanted to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone that I work with. And one of the reasons I'm here today is because I wanted to expand my network, reach out and learn about other folks. Hopefully I can learn something from you guys, share my experiences, and also my esteemed fellow panelists here. I mean, they are amazing, and how about a round of applause for them?
So this is really exciting, and the scope of tonight, here's how it's going to run. Nate is going to be asking them a series of questions. They're going to be tough questions. You're going to see the sweat dripping off the brow. Once those questions have run their course, probably about 20 minutes, we'll have a chance for the audience to ask questions, like 1 or 2, then Nate will pick it back up from there. definitely, if you've got a question, write it down. You've got name tags, you can write it on there. If you don't have a question, come up with one. These guys are here for you, okay? Let's go.
Thanks, Chris. And if I'm looking at my phone, it's only because I have a terrible memory and I like to write things down and keep notes, so I have them open on my phone. I'm not checking my email. Kind of what Chris explained to begin with, we kind of want to tackle this in different sections, like 3 major sections, and we'll run through them pretty quickly and open them up to questions from the audience and just kind of really explore that, how it happens. The first kind of overarching thing is, I think, really important from a top-down level is to understand where we're at in the industry as far as San Diego is concerned, and in a larger sense, how that relates to the rest of the, the rest of the design community, nationally and globally. I can tell you a little bit about, and I'll reflect on this a little bit as we go, about kind of what we're seeing from a staffing standpoint in San Diego and how that relates to some of our other major metros especially, because I have some insights into that, but I really kind of want to dive in to kind of get a top-down kind of view from Brant first about kind of where the current design trends are locally and nationally.
Okay, so San Diego typically with things like design, and I was talking about earlier, product management, we're actually always behind. And so I think we're behind the rest of the world, the rest of the big metro areas anyway, in terms of the significance and the importance of design and how to integrate it into their existing culture, their existing processes. There are companies here that do it well, and there are companies that often have other branches or headquarters in some of the other areas like New York or Silicon Valley. Intuit kind of comes to mind. I think they've got a strong UX ethos there. In my opinion, it really sort of launched in 2010 up in Silicon Valley is when design really came to the forefront of its importance in the startup world. And that's about when I did my panel, and there was just really very little talk about it. And so we've come a long ways, which isn't surprising. But I still think that there's a long ways to go, and so I think the people in the room are those that are going to push it to the next level, right? So it's you being today's leaders as well as the future leaders in how we move UX practices and design thinking and empathy work and some of these really vitally important practices. You guys are going to be responsible for growing it, so it's great that you're here.
Thanks, Brant. And that's really important to keep in mind, just kind of that overarching, just kind of where we're at nationally especially, because obviously we're looking at that more closely to how it relates to San Diego. The next question is going to be for Ali, and it's going to have to do a little bit about what he's, and this is a very broad and open-ended question, so I apologize for posing it to you, but just kind of where companies are focusing some of their resources on product services.
So Nate, I was actually going to ask you to answer the question that you had asked Brant, because I realize you are actually best positioned to answer what's going on in the marketplace. We all want to know, what are people hiring for? What are some of the roles that are going, unfilled? Just give us a lay of the land, and then I'll answer, the question you asked me. But I think we all want to hear that.
All right, I hate you. Okay. So that's a good point, and I was going to open with a few comments, but I feel like this better back and forth in between each kind of or each comment and question is probably appropriate. What we're seeing right now in the San Diego community and how that's reflective of what we're seeing, up north in Chicago, New York, even Atlanta and parts of Florida, is that there is literally in 2018 January, product-focused resources and opportunities probably rose 50% as far as what we're seeing in the job community, as far as job postings and everything else. We paid very close attention to those trends at Robert Half. Literally from 2017 January, it was a difference of 50% January 2018. And that includes, product design, front-end, UI, engineering, everything surrounding it, of course. But that was very foretelling to what the rest of the year kind of turned out to be. We had an increased volume of requests, especially in San Diego, but also up north in San Francisco and those areas, Seattle and those areas, for people that were more stratified across, for lack of a better word, UX, UI, and IXD in front end as well. They were getting more specific in their requests, whereas in the past, especially last year, 2017, it was much more general as far as we need a UX person that also, by the way, knows how to run JavaScript and plugins. Like, okay, it doesn't exist here in San Diego, but that's cool as far as availability. So that was an interesting change and definitely a detour from where it had come from. I would say that looking forward, I think that we're still running into the same problem as far as versatility. We can talk about the democratization of UX as we go, I'm sure. But we're still running the same utility that a lot of these people are expected to, a lot of these candidates and other people are expecting to fulfill. It's been a major issue for us trying to staff those positions, but it's also been a major issue for San Diego's availability as well. So I hope that answers some of it.
Yeah, no, that was good, and I'm glad that you kind of set the table for me, because you asked me what was your question again? Something about
exactly.
Where
I knew this was going to happen. No, really specifically in-house, inside of a company like Ash, where are the resources being put?
Now I remember. You mentioned things going towards specialization versus generalists, right? And I think that's what I was going to say, is that I think the value in the future of design and designers and product designers is in specialization, is understanding, we hear about the T-shaped individual, but it's good to understand all the levels of the business, good to understand all the folks that you're working with, but you have to bring something to the table that's very special, that you have a superpower. And what is that? That needs to be, I think, focused. You need specialists, whether they're researchers, designers, architects, etc. And I think then, as we move forward, probably 5 years from now and beyond, there's a potential for other types of specializations within our field. I think if you think about the rise in machine learning, AI, a lot of you probably work either with projects that have chatbots or will be working with something like that. Think about the type of skill set you need for that. It's the same thing. You need to research, you need to understand what is the intent, what's the goal. But now, instead of just designing for the user, you also have to design for your environment or your UI. With machine learning, with AI, you have to think about time and space. How does your interface evolve, right? As the interface learns, it's going to evolve, so you have to plan for that. So I think that's just another dimension, but I think it's just another dimension layered on top of the house that you guys already know how to operate in, right? You still have to explore and iterate and research the heck out of it, but now you have to think about how do you prototype in other ways so you can get the right information. It's not just linear anymore. So I think that's an example. A voice-related UI, right? Or interfaces, same situation. You have to design for different events over time. And then I think the easiest part of that is, how does all that degrade gracefully, right? How do you design for error situations in those cases? So I think it's just another dimension to what we have today, but that requires specialization. You need to know that medium a lot more. So
to piggyback that just real quick before you pass the torch, Ali, in American Specialty Health in Ash, are you? It sounds like you're a little bit more focused on the top of the T rather than the tail.
No, so okay.
Specialization.
So yeah. So I think as a designer, as a great candidate, as a great individual contributor or leader, you need to know what your strengths are. You need to be specialized in that. Now, the other dimension where the top of the T actually kind of comes into play is knowing and understanding how your business works. In order to be effective at your job, to design experiences, to to provide solutions that provide value, you need to understand how the rest of your organization works. So I think gone are the days that we just move pixels or just conduct research. We need to put all of that into action, and the only way that's going to be valuable if you understand after it's developed, how does that thing get serviced? You know, how does a call center experience the result of your work, right? How does operations work with whatever you've done? So my point is that design needs to be harmonious with the other parts of your business. In order for that to be successful, you need to know what is your business, why does it work, why do people pay you money, what is your core kind of value that you're providing, and then how can you optimize all of that? So I think have the skills, be a specialist, but understand what's going on around you, not just the folks in your Scrum team or your development team. It goes way beyond that. Know why your company exists. Because where we need to push towards as designers or product designers is the future, which is providing, kind of innovating or designing the business. And I think we have a particular skill set, and we're well positioned to think of the business in those different ways, because we already think about it when we think about our users and, you know, the tasks that they need to do, or the emotions that they need to have. So apply that same design thinking, or, you know, whatever you call that, right? Design thinking is just the buzzword of today. That same process towards your business, right? So, and that's when I think designers are gonna really kind of come into their own and be appreciated, be valued, you know, earn what they need to earn, or what they should earn, right? What they deserve to earn. And I think that's where San Diego can actually rise. I feel here we need to just show more examples of how a design-driven culture has impacted the bottom line, and that's going to impact salaries and compensations, and people can enjoy the beach a lot more often.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ollie. I didn't mean to put you on the spot for that long, but I did want you to talk about that kind of lateral sort of business, greater business purpose that a lot of, you know, designers that are going to need to understand moving forward. So I appreciate that. And we'll kind of dig into that a little bit later too, as just kind of wrapping this up as far as being the change in your organization and community. The next question is going to be for Sarah, and this doesn't have to be as involved because we are going to kind of come back on this again as well at the end. But you know, opportunities that you might be seeing for young or prospective professionals, you know, talking to teenagers or young adults and whatnot. What are opportunities for them to maybe understand or learn something like what Ollie's talking about before they even, you know, reach the professional sphere?
Well, I wish there were more. I think that we talked a little bit about this before we got on this panel, is that design thinking and incorporating design into curriculum into schools is really buzzy right now, and I'm a former school teacher, and I'm very aware of educational trends and how things become like the buzzword in the space. But buzzwords and trends don't mean that you're executing well, or that the teachers are actually equipped to teach what it is they're teaching. And that's not a slight to teachers, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you can't just go in to an education space or into a school and say, we're going to make it design thinking, and it's going to be a design school, and it's going to be all of these things, and then not have the people there that understand how to execute that and do that. So what I created the businesses that actually do that, because and just P.S. I'm not the designer. I know the people that are. Like, I find the mentors, I find the experts. I mean, one of my biggest fans, and I'm a big fan of his too, is Scott Robinson from Freshform, and he really shepherded me, really showed me get involved with the designers, get involved with the people that are the experts, and bring them into the spaces to teach the teens, and that's what we do. So I think it's twofold for us in the work that I do, where we provide the opportunities for the experts to come in and help our teens learn, because in my core of my being, I just don't think you should teach that which you don't know. I just don't think that's how it should work. I think we should outsource to the experts and bring them into the classrooms. In terms of providing our teens opportunities to be designers or to utilize design thinking, what's really interesting and fun about working with kids is they actually kind of naturally will do that if you just give them the space to do that. and not try to like control them so much. They will naturally prototype, they will ideate, they will pivot, that's just what they do. I mean, who like, hello Legos, hello, like when we were growing up, I mean, Lincoln Logs, age myself, that's fine. But like those of us that played with these tools, like you naturally did that. So we give them the space to do that. And then we just throw on design thinking. I mean, they're already doing it if you get out of the way. I mean, they build apps in a day at our hackathons to solve youth trafficking. And they didn't, you know, yeah, they're good. I like teens. They're easier to work with than adults.
That's a very good point. It's about getting involved even beyond or below, maybe even this way of looking at the internship or college level or whatnot in our community. That's what's going to help grow it. People like Sarah doing so and opening up just people or young people's minds to the opportunity. That's going to be something that you definitely want to help promote, you know, with everyone you touch.
We should maybe stop men teaching kids.
That would be wonderful. Yes. That's why I'm no longer teaching.
Maybe a different panel some other day. So right now I just kind of want to open it up a little bit, kind of about the broader scope, because we're going to dive in a little bit, to on the organizational level a little bit more, and then we're going to talk about, you know, even more so like yourself. How do you know, based on some of these, you know, confessions from some of the people, how do you be the change? How do you help grow not just your company, but yourself and the community around you, and obviously getting involved? So we'll kind of go there in two different layers next, but I want to kind of open it up for anyone that had specific questions for either specific panelists, or maybe I can help direct. Thanks, Chris.
I have a list of 10 questions. I'll start with the simplest. Sarah.
Yes.
We just heard from Ali that we need to learn new dimensions to tell our stories. And I'm curious because you're working with kids who are learning new technologies that we've never even heard of. And it's probably changing the stories that they're telling and changing the ideas that are coming your way. And I'm wondering, what are some of those tools that they're using, and how is it influencing the ideas?
You mean like tech tools that they're using? I mean, I don't know. I can't. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say that I can speak to what they're using that I haven't like seen other people using.
Like Snapchat.
So, like Snap, yeah. I mean, Snapchat's kind of lame for them right now a little bit. Like there's like little things that we see a lot. Like we know that our teens aren't on Facebook. They go back on Facebook in college when then there's like Facebook groups for clubs. But they don't want to be on Facebook because their mom's on Facebook. And then so they went to Instagram, and then they're on Instagram, and they're like, oh, hi mom, so mom's now on Instagram, so now I'm gonna have a Finsta. So now they have their fake Insta. And so then it's like, okay, now I'm going to Snap, and then Snap got weird, and with all its like needs, like advertisements, and the way that the user experience wasn't that great for them. And so it's interesting. Those aren't platforms that I would naturally go on, but my teens got me on Instagram years ago, and I remember the first picture I took was in New Orleans, and it was one of those ferries, like old school ferries, and they're like, it has to be artistic. And I'm like, okay. They're like, so don't do the whole picture of the boat, you just want to do like part of it. And I remember just being like, this is the lamest thing. Okay. So we did it, and then Snapchat was introduced to me in the audience, but we went to one of our teens' events, and they're like, there's the Snapchat, and everything just like goes away after you send it. And I was like, that's so stupid. Like, why would you want that? They're like, no, you've got to get on it. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, and so I'm on these platforms, and they're using them. But what I like to see teens do is tell you how they're using the platforms in the different ways than they're meant to be used. That's the stuff that lights me up. It's like, I mean, even that the word Finsta exists is because people were like, I have to get a fake Insta because people are now like on this account, seeing me. So I don't know how much that's answering your question, but I like giving, you're gonna hear me say this a lot, I like giving youth the space to create and to build and that's what I want to see them do. So that's what we do really well. When they fail, they build resilience, they get some grit and hustle. So that's my favorite thing to do with them.
It's a very good point. I come from a long line of educators myself as far as family goes, and I know that they've struggled with both the integration of technology into classrooms, but also it's opened up a lot of doors for people that might not have had it in different areas of the world, especially. Anyone else have any questions about maybe? Thank you. Yes, sir.
I have a question for, I forgot your name, but the guy in the striped shirt. Yeah.
Brant.
Not wearing your name.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been able to see it.
Such a rebel. Brant.
Yeah.
You quickly touched on that you try to help enterprises work more like startups.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what specific properties of a startup are beneficial for an enterprise, and can you answer that the other way around also?
So, can you repeat the last part?
Yeah.
Sort of looked down and I lost it.
So what properties of a startup are beneficial for an enterprise to do, but what properties of an enterprise are beneficial for a startup to do?
All right, so great question. So what we teach is really that it's about operating differently when you face uncertainty. And so large enterprises are successful because they understand their market, they understand the problems, they understand the solutions, and they've built out their whole organization to be optimized for executing on a well-known plan in those markets. And so large enterprises have an execution engine, and they're very good at it. Even if they're starting to lose revenues or they're not growing as well as they want to, they have an execution engine. And everything inside, the whole hierarchy of the company is based upon managing execution. So they do that awesome. The problem is that they lose growth and they don't know how to do anything else. Startups are completely opposite of that spectrum. They actually have no execution engine at all. They don't understand their market that well. Sometimes they don't understand their problem at all. You ask startup entrepreneurs and they can't articulate who they think their customer is or what their value proposition is. It's crazy. But so they're faced with just massive amounts of uncertainty. And so that's why it's a chaotic environment. There's a lot of risk, and people are drawn to startups who are able to operate and thrive in that. You wear multiple hats and there's very little hierarchy. So they're optimized for what we call learning mode, because what they have to do is go figure out how they're going to create that blueprint, how are they going to create the roadmap. And as they start to learn, then they have to start executing on what they've learned. So now they're building sort of this nascent execution engine. So what my company does is teaches, it's not sort of bimodal, it's not search, execute, it's not learning and execute. It's actually this spectrum, this continuum of uncertainty where there's uncertainty in the large enterprises today. It's just relatively small uncertainty as the startup on the other end, which is massive amounts of uncertainty. And so the trick is that you have to act more like a startup wherever there's uncertainty. So it's a small fraction of a large enterprise, but they still have to act like that, more like that, learning mode, what kids do naturally, learning mode.
Yeah.
And so that's what we teach them, is how to apply what we call the entrepreneurial spirit, which is based upon empathy work, rapid experimentation, and using evidence to make decisions instead of the highest paid person in the room or because of our biases or whatever, right? But you apply that wherever there's that uncertainty.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very thorough answer. I mean,
I've had that question one or two times.
I'm sure you have. It seemed almost rehearsed, Brant. No, but it's a very good point, an excellent question, obviously, because there's always that dichotomy, that fight between the two ideas, and we deal with it a lot on the staffing side as well.
Well, and actually just to bring it back to something that Ali was talking about and the need for specialization and also the T, some of those skill sets need to be broad, right? So specialization is built on top of a foundation. And to me, the foundation is essentially what you're teaching. The foundation is, how do you actually do empathy work?
Yeah.
Right? How do you understand your customers deeply? It's not doing what they say. It's actually understanding needs, desires, aspirations, so that then when you're designing, you have those elements in mind, not a feature.
Yeah.
It's not how am I going to make this feature better. It's like, what am I trying to accomplish, and what is the emotional result that's going to happen to that? How do I experiment to validate and invalidate what are the riskiest assumptions? And so those end up being then this foundation layer that if you build your specialization on top of that foundation, wow, you're the most employable person in the world, seriously. I mean, those are the people that are going to be hired and promoted because the world's changed. Switching from one platform to another, that's the agility that our customers have, one from the other. So we need to be as agile as there, I just gave a super long answer. We're done now, right? Well,
Actually, I was going to ask Ali to expand on that from his point of view.
Yeah, I was going to.
Absolutely.
It triggered something. So. No, well, almost. So what I found, so I've worked for, a few startups, but mostly larger corporations in the last, 10, 15 years, right? A bank and now kind of a, mid-sized company. What I've seen is those companies are adopting or creating a design team, organization, and that's why I've been there, to help create that culture. And just for the same reason that you work in these corporations, they have the same issue. Is I think structurally and organizationally they're not ready. We could create a design team, you could create the best researchers and you have great empathy work and all that, but the reason why it fails to be successful at the level it could be, or it's because of the organizational structure, right? And I think organizational structure is tied to, or creates culture as well, right? And I think culture, and you've probably heard this, right? Culture eats strategy for lunch or whatever, right? Breakfast, right?
Dinner as well.
Dinner, right. Yeah. Why is that? Is because the underpinning of culture is how you're organized, right? How you communicate, what the expected hierarchy is, how decisions are made, all of that. So I think in addition to being able to learn how to learn efficiently, right? Be really quick with your experiments. You need to be effective at disseminating that information or the learnings across your organization, not just to your dev team or to your product manager, but across the organization. So how do you do that? And then you need to execute, right? Operationally, et cetera, day to day. So I think it goes beyond just, it's kind of a meta thing, because it's you're just the way we practice design on our projects, you need to practice it across your whole organization, on your organization. Consider your CEO and your COO and all those guys as the folks you're trying to design around and for as well.
That's exactly
right.
Yeah.
Try to understand what their needs are, what their fears are, right? And so it's multi-layered. And that's what gets me so excited is how do you crack that in an organization? And I've seen it done. It takes time, right? So you have to be prepared to be patient, be persistent. Don't be afraid of a few no's. You pitch an idea, it gets shot down, that's okay. I know with millennials, they're used to kind of instant gratification, and it's not to say that you guys are that, but what I'm saying is you have to get beyond that. You have to be aware and be prepared for the no's in the road, but just be persistent. And just like you would approach a well-designed solution, do your homework, right? Do the hard work about pitching your idea for how the business can, work better, be more efficient. Think of it from a day-to-day perspective, right? What are their needs? Their needs are to make money every day. So how can you help in any one, piece of that puzzle? And then you gain credibility, you gain the confidence because you suddenly got recognized, or someone said, "Great job, you did a wonderful job," and you build on that and you use that to kind of propel yourself. So it's kind of interesting how naturally there's this continuum across learning in your space. Yeah.
Yeah, because the same thing is for schools, right? You can't just come in, whether it's a corporation or a school, or you can't just come in and say, we're gonna do this thing, and then not authentically involve everybody in there for buy-in. And you especially can't do that in education, because teens will just roll their eyes at you, because well, staff will too, but behind your back, but teens will do it in front of you. So like, that doesn't even line up. You say one thing and you do another. You're telling me to like show empathy in this business that I'm developing, but you don't even show empathy to me, so I'm out, like I'm not interested. So that's what's really interesting to me, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and Sarah, hold on to that mic because that kind of leads into, we've already touched on it, the kind of second part of this is how I kind of saw it going down, but I figured this is pretty much how it worked. It's great questions and great answers. Regarding what you're kind of referring to there, I'm very interested to hear your point of view of how young, like teens or young adults or people even pre-higher ed, how they're preparing or what the mindset is, what they're moving into our industry, or I shouldn't say our industry, the design industry or any industry. Is their mindset more corporate agency focused? I mean, I could probably answer that for you, but I want to hear what like young people are thinking when they're exploring new ideas out there.
What I'm concerned about is that we're raising a generation that doesn't have resilience and grit and a comfort with failure and seeing excitement around failure. So that concerns me. I think that that's a parenting thing and that's an education thing. And so, although we're out here in my companies and my peer groups and the work that I'm doing, just like preaching and talking about entrepreneurial mindset and emotional intelligence and like the value of failing and all of that, it's very, very hard to go up against a culture that's saying, that still believes, which just blows my mind, still believes that if you get into an Ivy League school, you will be happy and you will be successful. I'm like, I can't believe I'm gonna swear, so I'm gonna swear. Go for it. I'm just like, it's being recorded. I can't believe that the adults that know that's a lie perpetuate that lie. The adults know that that's not true. And then they go off and they raise kids saying, get a 4.0, get into an Ivy League school so I can go to the dinner party and I can say, my kid's going to Harvard. And like somehow you've like, yeah, 4.6 now, 4.7, right? So it's fascinating to me that we know, meaning adults know, the people that are educating and raising this next generation know that that was a lie. And that we are better off if we teach people and raise a generation of workers and creators and innovators that embrace not knowing and embrace failing. So I mean, I know the youth are hungry for it. We go in and we run these workshops and they just, but the saddest thing is that when we first go into spaces, they're afraid to have a wrong answer. I mean, come on. So then that's going to translate into the boardroom or into a video because people are just going to be like, I don't know what's the right answer on that. So we say they're just talk, and you just like you see this weight kind of lifting off of them. So my commitment is to help raise the generation of, like I said, workers, contributors, innovators that will walk into your rooms, be your colleagues, and be open to dialogue. And be okay with not being right, and can admit when they're wrong, and love the challenge and the journey, not just like, did I get an A, did I get a bonus? I mean, I don't think that's living, personally.
So I think there is a responsibility for the managers and the leaders in organizations to create a space where folks like that can come in.
But you have to model it as a leader, right? Like as the manager, you have to model failing in front of them, or saying, oh, you know what, I was wrong, you were right, or let's bring this person in from a different, like, we have to model that more, I think.
You're exactly right, and I think one of the things that is, you're seeing a lot written about these days, and I've seen it, firsthand, is first step is to create that environment that, they call it psychological safety. You have to have a psychologically safe environment. What does that mean? It means that people trust that it's okay to fail, to be wrong, to take risks, right? To experiment, and there won't be any negative repercussions of that.
Yeah.
And not just from your boss, but also sometimes your peers, right? So your peers can look down upon you because you said something quote unquote stupid in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
When you actually arrive at a psychologically safe team or environment, you actually feel it. You can see what happens. The personal relationships that you can embrace then. It's like a tribe mentality. Everyone is there for each other. But then you have a lot more confidence, not just yours, but you can build on top of that. So I think for the folks that are coming in from your program and folks that, startups that may be transitioning to the corporate environment, the corporate environment is a toxic space because it doesn't value these ideals of, who was that you found that funny? Is that someone in the back? Huh? Well, the Blink isn't corporate. I wouldn't call this corporate. I'm talking about the corporations, right? The big bad corporations. I'm saying, I'm sure you guys have something great going on here. It looks amazing, by the way. It's the fact that people get promoted into being a people manager when they shouldn't be, right? Why is that? Because that's what is perceived as the only way to progress. And so there's a whole kind of catch-22 system that is perpetuating this these issues. So.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Brant to kind of fill in the blanks as far as what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit more optimistic because I see that it's changing, and so almost all large enterprises now are experimenting with innovation labs, and a lot of it is innovation theater, so they're not really doing innovation, but they want the hip workspaces and the Nerf guns and the ping pong tables and all the rest. And why are they doing that? They're doing that because they're having a hard time hiring millennials. I mean, you probably know this better than anybody. And the reason why they're having a hard time is because younger people don't want to work in that stale corporate structure. And so I actually think that speaks well of young people, and I think that there's a lot more expectation of, not slogging through all of that and being more, they don't resonate with the word entrepreneurial, but they are by nature more entrepreneurial. And they recognize freelance opportunities as being part of what they're going to do when they're going to college and doing some of these other things. So I guess that there's a lot of people that are actually already sort of more independent in that way, and it's really one of the biggest struggles that the large enterprises face is how do they create a culture. And you're exactly right on the structure. They actually haven't thought about yet how they're going to change the structure, but they're trying to now create a culture where they can have younger people in there who feel empowered to exercise their creativity and their inspiration. And it's hard for these companies to do, but they are recognizing that there's a need to do that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to field one question from the back, and then I'll piggyback that too. Yes, sir.
So to that line, when you guys were talking about that creating that culture of failing up and being supportive, as leaders, what are some of the best practices that you guys implement or teach or whatever to get that other part of that, which is the learning that they get from failing? So not just, oh, I failed, cool, kumbaya, we all failed. No, what did you learn from the fail? How did you apply that? What are some of those key moments that they can teach someone about?
Well, I mean, I'll go back to I just think it's really important to model it. So I actually use that language where I will talk about in front of the teens, or I'll do a video and send it out to our teens across the country, or I'll do it in front of my staff. I will talk about a failure that I had, and I'm not like faking the failure. I fucked up. I mean, I messed up. I'm not like faking it. Well, now's my time to model that I failed, so that everybody feels comfortable. I talk about here's where I really thought this would be a really great thing for what we're doing, and this is what happened, and here's how I felt. And even I was resistant to want to tell you because I was just and I'm telling you because the reason I wanted to tell you was because this is the really cool thing that happened as a result of it. And I will tell you that the teens eat that. I mean, they love to hear an adult say that they were wrong or they messed up or they apologize. And when I say it, I'm and it feels really good because I just feel really powerful because I model that there's power in and putting yourself out there and dropping and failing. I remember thinking I had this great idea that we were gonna roll out, and I mean, I was convinced it was gonna sell out right away. So it was such a great value offer, and it was crickets, so much so that we just brought that back. We just were gonna roll that thing back. And I talked about all the different feelings I had around it. And I didn't talk about it crying or like, I just was really in the process of it. And so now what I love seeing is the space where people naturally just talk like that. So I just feel like I don't have like a curriculum around it. We just model it as a leader, and then I love seeing the teens come in with like greatest failures or like biggest risks and like how they learn from them. So my advice is to model it even when it's hard. I will tell you it's very hard in front of children because I grew up with the mindset that the parents were always right or the adults were always right, and I kind of had to like, so I kind of want to be like, you know what, I had to grow up like just listening to adults and like, so now you do, like, but it's not true. That's not healthy. So we're gonna reframe that and do it differently.
Yeah, I think those are all a very good question, and it actually almost answered my question that I was going to ask anyway. But based on what I'm hearing here, based on what I know in the community, how we're trying to help kind of promote change on the organizational level with the hiring managers that we're talking to, is this idea that millennials are not lazy. I'm going to stop calling millennials, but you know what generation I'm talking about. They're not lazy. They are not afraid to fail. And I think that's kind of the mindset that we're trying to help from a young design thinkers, young digital marketers, young whatever, that I'm talking to a potential hiring manager about. I'm trying to sell them on the sense that this person has that spirit where they are going to fail. It's not because they're lazy, it's because they want to learn. That's a new way of learning, instead of having a template already in place at your organization where they have to start checking these boxes, otherwise that's a failure. That's not failure. They just didn't meet whatever archaic standard you had. So that's how we're trying to help organizations across the board, agency, corporate side, enterprise level, whatever it might be, hire younger individuals, keep and retain them here. And then also, and we can get into kind of what the gaps are here. Well, I'll just approach it right now. The gaps right now in our community, in San Diego especially, where we're losing out to some of our more progressive folks up north than otherwise, is that we're losing a lot of people after 3 years. We're losing a lot of great talented individuals here because they're thinking that I'm from San Diego, I went to school here at UCSD, USD, where it might have been, and now I need a couple of years of experience, and then I'm going to go up north where it's a little bit more dangerous, but they might also appreciate, that forward-thinking kind of ability to fail and nurture that. So we are really losing them after 3 years, and then of course, because it's San Francisco or where else, they come back in 2 more years.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You got any jobs for me, Nate?" And I'm like, "Well, not the pay you're making." I mean, that's another story for another day. But yeah, encouraging companies of any level, of any agency or background, to really take a chance on some younger, more progressive individuals that are coming out of our education system, that really just kind of come here for, the opportunity that we're building. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So to that point, on the higher end of the millennial spectrum in San Diego, and as a San Diego native, I see that there are, from startup to corporate, there is this kind of sleepy backwater, like we're slow to catch up. We're not as exciting or innovating as the major hubs. So here, what I see is one of the challenges is that when you're in a career already where you are a UX researcher, designer, whoever you are, there's this glass ceiling that is no longer based on some of the traditional glass ceiling measures, but it is the culture glass ceiling, that with it being a sort of behind the times kind of culture here, you just kind of get to this point where you're so frustrated, you're like, I don't think I can make progress happen in the organization that I'm in, so you have to leave. So my questions are both on sort of like a San Diego cultural level, what can we do to help drive the entire culture forward, and then on a personal level, what do you recommend for, do you dig your heels in and try to make things happen here? Do you take that opportunity in Silicon Valley and leave for a few years and try to come back and inject that back into the culture here? Like, what do you see?
I'll just take your resume at the end of this. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that's an absolute perfect segue into a line of questioning that's going to be kind of our major third pillar or silo of conversation here. I'm happy to answer that from a staffing standpoint, but actually I want to kind of pass that over to Ollie first, because we had a pretty good discussion the other night about just really that, and piggybacking a little bit what you said earlier.
Yeah, no, Katie, that's a great question. So I think I would encourage you to stay here. right? And I think this is, I've resigned myself to the fact that this is my home now, and I really want to build something here, right? I think we talk about being the change, right? You have to be the change. How do you do that? So there's two levels to that. It won't happen by digging your heels in. What you have to be is be flexible, but be persistent, right? And I mentioned being patient and persistent. Have gratitude for any and every opportunity you have. Create allies, right? So I'm sure you're not the only one who has those same frustrations, right? So create your own little bubble, and the culture. And that's going to grow, because if it's a great thing and it's as good as you want to make it, others are going to want to join in, right? For the same reasons. And before you know it, it's going to make ripples, right? So that's on one level. That's kind of a grassroots level thing. You're going to have like this kind of a small group around you. You'll have confidence, but start doing something of value, showing something of value to your company. No one has to ask you to do it. That's why I was saying earlier, try to understand what your business is all about, what they do, because the only way you're going to get noticed or be given an opportunity to do something that that's above that glass ceiling right now is if they have credibility or trust in you. And what you do is you don't ask for permission. You just go ahead and do it. You create the cog. You align yourself with like-minded folks across the organization, because it takes a team of folks, right? And whether it's a developer or customer service person or whoever it is, do your research, do your homework, be scientific about it, iterate, and then present your ideas. Present a well thought out, a long-term, perhaps mid-term vision, something that can help the day-to-day, but also may have something for the future. And even if your manager turns you down or whoever it is, at least they're going to see that spark in you. That's what people are looking for. People are looking for individuals like you who want to do more than what they're being told to do or asked to do or see, and create opportunities, right? So that's I think.
So that's a great answer, and Brant, I'm going to ask you to kind of extrapolate on that too. But
Well, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing. You hit on something that is so important with young professionals that they never quite understand about being the change in your organization. The first question I ever ask any candidate I ever talk to in this industry as to why they might be looking or why we're even talking in the first place is like, when's the last time you had a conversation with your manager? When is the last time you talked about what your needs and wants are? I don't even care if that's financial. When's the last time that you talked to your manager about your needs and wants in your organization? And that's a hard question for a lot of people to ask, both like when they did it in their mind, but also like what was that conversation like? So that's a really good point. Like you have to kind of promote that spark.
And you can get to your financial need, but start with something that's not about money. It's about the why. Try to explain the why. And for the managers out there, don't treat your job as just delegating. Your job is far more difficult and more important than that, right? It's to nurture, to really understand what the human needs of the people that you're serving, right?
It's to be a mentor.
To be a mentor. And what does that mean, right? You really need to deeply understand what that individual's life situation is, what their needs are, who they want to be, who they could be, and then try to guide them along that path, right?
And you said like, when's the last time you talked to a manager? Like, when's the last time that you? But I always be like, when's the last time a manager came to you and said like, I'd like to learn more about you and like understand how
So
you.
it goes both ways.
Yeah, like I think that would go a long way with people that I meet, where they're like, I'm like, we tell everybody like we gotta create the value, we gotta do all that stuff. It's like a little yes, and the people that are above or whatever, like they know. Like, come on, you know that people, that when you were, I know everybody started at the top, so you know that you looked for people that wanted to help you and that wanted to support you and wanted to listen to you and who made the time for you. So I'm like, we can do better there. Like, we can be the ones that are going out there and saying like, talk to me. Like, I know it can be like there's not enough time in the day, but like it just goes so far. I mean, I don't know, Katie, if you would agree with that, but like if in your situation, if they came to you and said, how can we help you? We want to keep you. We'd love to see you grow. What ideas do you have? I think that would probably like light you up and you feel really valued. And hello, managers, you probably get some really great ideas, right? Like from people and like build an authentic culture of like back and forth.
And that's a perfect point. We consult with and talk to both my clients and our team's clients about that all the time. Is about like, you know, it's especially effective for us because we have ongoing conversations with both the candidate and the client that we connect the dots for. We can have both those conversations intimately and transparently with each other.
I guess the only thing I would add to that is don't stop with your manager. Go to other leadership.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to just be your manager. And I think, Ali, I think you laid it out absolutely perfectly about how you find like-minded people, cross-discipline. The only thing that I would change about this is don't bring an idea to them, bring evidence. So like, do the work. Do the empathy work, do the experiment. So I tell this to startup entrepreneurs all the time. If you pitch an idea to a group of people, you're actually asking them to poke holes in your ideas, right? And the fact that smart people can sit around, there's an infinite number of reasons why an idea could fail. And that smart people can figure out what some of those ways you're gonna fail, that's just not helpful or insightful. If you pitch evidence, they still will poke holes in the evidence, but that's fair game and they're speaking your language. They're gonna say, "Whoa, did you think about this? Oh, well, that's a good assumption. You know, can I go run an experiment? What's a good experiment I could run based upon that assumption?" And so you start getting them to talk your game, and now you're in, right? And when you're going out and you're trying to find like-minded people, do it like a happy hour. Do a design thinking happy hour or a lean innovation happy hour or something, and see who shows up. And you might just get a senior leader that shows up or somebody that's, you know, leadership. And the biggest trick here is, where is their uncertainty? So Ali said earlier about trying to find that this was meta and you have to try to find the leader's needs. You have to do empathy work with the leadership. What keeps them up at night? And if you can actually design an experiment with your cross-functional team that reduces the uncertainty that they have about their day-to-day, that's a way for you to have impact without you having to go and build a new product that, you know, results in $1 billion, right? It can be an internal process issue. So Intuit was very early in the design thinking and applying lean startup. And they would have these little hackathons. They were hackathons, but they were really teaching these methodologies. And a finance team plugged a hole inside these back-end systems that saved the company $10 million. They did that like within a couple of months of even starting that program. So there's all sorts of opportunities to demonstrate small impact that goes like, well, wait a second. You're starting to open eyes and open ears, and there's a way to start gaining credibility and that sort of thing. So I think there's all sorts of opportunities to move it forward. Sometimes the most painful part of this answer is sometimes it just takes time. San Diego recruits older people here to take high-end jobs, and sometimes it just takes time, and the next generation is then the next generation that's ready. And that's a really lousy answer, but there's a lot of what you can do is to prepare to be that change agent. I know.
Brant, we're not promoting hospice for the.
I would like to say that.
All I'm saying.
It's not that what we're doing here.
I would like to say that you don't wait to create. So go do it on the side. Go do that. I mean, go to people like my organization and say, I heard that you're doing this stuff and you're doing hackathons, and it sounds like you could probably use people that know how to do design thinking. Like, what if I got a team together, we came in and we ran? That's what the UCSD Design Lab did, and so then we have their students teaching it, and that's what Quinlan and Nazarene did. Now we got students doing certain things for go create what you wish you were doing. I don't ever like hearing human beings talking like they're waiting for somebody to give them permission to be great and amazing and to shine and share their gift. It's like, don't wait for another human being to see you. Like, hello, no. Just see yourself and like go out and do that thing. So I'm all about, I'm helping teens do that. I'm helping 15-year-olds launch businesses because they deserve to like share their gifts. So I think adults should be like doing that too.
Which is perfect, and that's kind of where like the linear progression starts and should never end. What I was talking about before, which you all just kind of reiterated on eloquently, is that we're looking for young professionals here in San Diego in the design community, especially concerning this community, to take that leap of faith in themselves and promote the change at a young starting point, like right when they enter the building, honestly, like day one, but literally 2-3 years in after you've had some experience, and then the bright lights of San Francisco start shining their spotlight over, you know, the tech community that we have building here. It's too easy to get lured out of here when you never even tried to really promote that change within your own organization first, or just for yourself in the community. There's a lot of opportunity here, a ton of opportunity here, as we know, as staff, you know, recruiting side, entrepreneurially, literally a hiring manager, then also building up a community from the base. So much opportunity here. So it really does behoove you to try at that 2 to 3 year stage with any opportunity or organization to really push that change, and then just be patient. Be patient, persistent. I think that's the word. Okay, so we've covered a lot tonight. I want to open up just real quick as well as for any other questions. I'm sure there's got to be a couple out there.
I like what they.
Yes, sir.
So.
James, I'll give you my
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Wow, there's a lot of people here. So this is a pick one out of two, and I have a question. So what skill that's valued today do you think will no longer be valuable in 5 to 10 years, and why? Or conversely, what's something that's not valued today that you could see gaining prominence and importance in future hiring?
So let me refine that just real quick. Are we talking, James, are we talking the skill set that a UX designer is using today?
A UX designer.
A skill set a UX designer or researcher is using today that won't be here in 5 years, or won't be as needed, or
Excel?
it's never going away.
I would love that.
That's not going anywhere. And then the second part of your question, or the second question we could answer was
what's something that's not valued when you evaluate a UX research or design candidate today that could become valuable?
I'm gonna ask Ollie to start, actually. I'm sorry, Ollie, I have to.
So what's going away? I think, you know, I don't like to use this word pixel pushing, but you know, that mindset of making a design pixel perfect, that's not going to add value, right? It doesn't add value today. The only reason it adds value is because we think that that's the only way to communicate design to our developers, and if we don't make it pixel perfect, they're going to screw it up. That's not why. I mean, there's a whole other issue there. It's that we don't have a better way to communicate our designs. That's a different topic. I think, or there are other ways to communicate the designs, but that's a different topic. It's about tools, etc. I think the skill that everyone needs to continue to develop, everyone has that, but we need to continue to develop that because that's going to be even more valuable, hopefully, is the ability to glean insights from and you know, use the learnings, right? So we do a lot of testing. As designers, as researchers, we've created tests, we've conducted tests, we've created artifacts, prototypes, etc. That's not where the gold is, right? It's not about creating the prototype. It's really, why are you doing that prototype? What are you going to learn from it? And then how are you going to use that to understand what you learned, the insight part, right? That is a very delicate art. I don't think it's given enough importance, right? The folks that know how to do it really well. It comes really easy, but I think that's where the focus needs to be, or value is going to be found. Did that make sense?
Got some head nods.
Yeah? Okay.
James, does that make sense?
Yep, pixel pushing.
Am I allowed to? Well, we do it anyway. I'm gonna ask permission.
Do it.
I'm not gonna act like I'm a chair. So I think that I'd like to see, this has nothing to do with this, like a skill, I mean like a tangible skill, as much as I'd like to see, and I'm hoping to see, more value and importance on your emotional intelligence, the development of that. I think that is what really makes a solid team member, what really makes somebody that you want to work with, somebody who has empathy and social skills, has self-awareness and regulation. Like, these are things that are really important, and then the skills will come. So what I'm seeing is Even I can only judge this from what I see teens being tested on, or what college applications are looking for, which then kind of like drives other things, is that there is more of a conversation around your EQ. It's the EQ over IQ any day of the week kind of conversation. The wonderful thing about developing that is that solely you can do that. Like nobody needs to teach you that. Like you get to do the work on that. So I'd like to see that matter more.
Well, for people that lack the emotional intelligence such as myself, where do I go to find those skills if I'm not capable of learning them myself, Sarah?
Well, I highly doubt that you don't know, but that was a nice little tee up. I think, I got into it just by, this is so silly, but I got into it by buying a book in an airport bookstore. I heard all this buzz around it. When anything gets really buzzy, I'm always like curious about it. And then I read about it and I was like, oh, okay, this is like what we're already doing, but now it's called that. And so these are like the categories of it. Okay, cool. So now we'll call it that. I think just look up what emotional intelligence is, and there's like different categories, and explore that. I think there's tons of articles about it now. There's books on it. You have the EI 2.0 book here.
Which we're going to be giving away.
Oh, we're giving it away. Oh, if you want to develop, this was not a tee up. If you'd like to develop your emotional intelligence, the most important quality.
Nate might just take that book.
You can win it tonight.
I'm not getting this copy, so I'm taking it home.
I can't stress that enough. I think you feel that. Don't you feel similarly about that?
It's okay to know.
No, yeah, totally. Actually, you can go and make that part of your job requirement. Like, I want to go work someplace where they're actually going to teach me EQ, and you can find that. So, like my company builds coaching programs inside of large enterprises, and we teach EQ. It's like in every one of our modules is an IQ portion and an EQ portion. So you can actually learn that on the job. There's also just public workshops, and there's all sorts of ways to do it. So I think that I wish there was something like that a long time ago.
Why is EQ important?
Totally.
Why is it relevant, and why is it important?
For your, I thought you meant you didn't know. I'm like,
No, I don't know. Tell me.
I'll have a book for it if you'd like to know.
Okay. Yeah, why should I? That's what I want to know. Why is it so important?
Well, so it works on several different levels, right? So it's going to benefit you in all of your relationships, in your so it's helped you personally grow, but it's in your relationships. And it's that relationships, not only your family and friends, but also all of your business relationships, or if you're a startup entrepreneur, it's all of your customers. There's just no end to sort of growing your emotional intelligence. Inside of large enterprises that have taken on innovation and lead innovation and those type of things, those are skill sets that are needed just for the same reason all designers need it now. So there's just...
Well, because everything becomes very authentic. Like everything is like if you're caring about emotional intelligence as a person and you're working on your own EQ, then you're going to want to work with individuals and help your team develop that. And then your team is going to work on those things together, and then you're going to create value for customers that are taking that into consideration. There's this beautiful thing that happens, the ripple effect that happens when you're working on your own emotional intelligence, and it's like going back to what Katie was saying, like you will have the self-awareness of like, I'm actually leaving to go do this thing over here, and not because I didn't try here, but it's like you just get to have more control, I think, and power in your life, and you're developing that because you're making choices from response versus reaction.
And I'll let you answer the question. The reason why is because that's where insights come from.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you wanted me, you were testing me. I'm old, so it took me extra time.
No. You guys, you were exactly right. I just wanted others to hear and I wanted to hear what your perspective was why. But I was thinking about Katie's question. Yeah, and sorry, we're singling you out, Katie. You had such a great question. We could just do a whole session on your question, right? I think in the journey to be more self-aware and be better at the other aspects of EQ, right? You're going to learn how to hack other people, other human relationships and needs and motivation and all that, which are going to allow you to break that glass ceiling that you talked about, right? So you'll gain the insight, right?
It's also the future skill set that we're
And
talking
that is
about.
the future
Right,
skill set.
and I think that's, everyone here can agree that the EQ or emotional intelligence that you're gonna gain, and I can tell you from a recruiting standpoint, what hiring managers are looking for is well beyond your tactical skill set. Trust me, it's well beyond that. So, to wrap up, because I know we've run a little long, what I'd like to leave you with here tonight, I think, and what everyone wants to leave you here tonight, is like definitely be the change in your community. How you're going to do that is getting involved in mentorship programs, getting involved in XD, SDXD specifically, and this is just part of a whole nother conversation that we can have individually at any time, so don't ever feel like you can't reach out to any of us. The best way to do it is join the community and be involved on Slack or otherwise, because there's definitely a lot of information there for people that are looking to grow. Now, we did mention the book, and I'm going to wrap up with just one final thing, is that we'd like people to tweet at XD San Diego, XD SANDIEGO. I made it through.
Nice.
All right. Tweet about your main takeaway today. There's going to be a winner out of that crop, and they are going to get the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. We have many ways of getting that to you, so don't worry about that. But yeah, tweet your main takeaway at XD San Diego. We really are looking for your insights, being part of the community, because we can talk all day long, and it doesn't really mean much if we're not, answering the right questions. Thank you very much.
James, did you? So
very much. It's my second or third time being in here in this type of setting, so it's amazing here. We really appreciate that.
Hello again. Normally at this point I would offer a little stretch break, but let's wrap this up so you guys can get back to the important stuff, the beverages and the leftover pizza there. So I just got marching orders straight from the top from our president that the tweet that receives the most likes by the end of this evening will be the winner for Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So do some in-person lobbying, do some social media promotion, and it can pay off.
You can't find us anywhere.
It's not in the airport, but it's
not in the elevator. That's in the elevator.
Thank you.
Yeah. Please tag it with hashtag SD San Diego. XD San Diego. I don't know the social media stuff. I let Debbie handle that. I'm a bad millennial. But the real reason I'm up here is to talk a little bit more about being that change. I think that was a huge takeaway we heard, is you can't be passive if you expect something to happen. And we have some lovely, amazing volunteers out here, and just as the head of community here, I'm always so impressed by the stories that people tell. Steve and Josh, I'm so excited for how early you are in your career, but how much you're learning and getting out there. And to all my North County homies, thank you for bearing with all the traffic down here. And then to all of you, just battling the parking and the games and all the logistics and maybe waiting on a wait list. It's super impressive and it's super commendable, because how many people do you know who just keep talking about, oh, I hate my job, or I want to be at this company a few years, and you say, so what are you going to do about it? And they say, well, I don't know, or I don't have a plan. Here all of you are, sitting in this room, listening to incredible insights and elevating your craft. So I'd really love to recognize that. I have a lot of appreciation for everyone here. The next part of this, and I'll try not to be overly self-indulgent, is trying to make this whole notion of your path more tangible. So we say you can talk to Dawn, you can go to sdxd.org, you can get in touch with any of us.
The MailChimp. We have a MailChimp.
You can hit up the newsletter, and you can get in touch with us, but how does that materialize? Well, I came to San Diego not knowing that many people, and I heard about this cool organization. I saw so many members, I saw so many meaningful, impactful events, and I decided to check it out. And what happened was far beyond anything I could have imagined, because you meet these incredible people, incredibly talented, incredibly far along in their career, but everyone's so approachable, everyone's so nice, and the after party went on way longer than I thought it was. I was like, you guys have to go to work tomorrow? But long story short, I helped greet folks, I helped set up the area, I helped with content, and I interviewed some people to see how can we better structure our content to fit your needs, and now here I am. And there's a multitude of benefits to this. First of all, it's really shaping that conversation. I'm sure there's things that everyone's interested in discussing or learning more about, and when you volunteer, you can have that influence and make that happen. Second of all, the recognition is always fun. It's nice to be on a slide, and I gotta say, like, probably helps with your employment prospects. And last of all is probably the community and the people that you'll meet. You get to meet incredible people, know them on a first name basis, and I can genuinely say there's people in here who are like family to me, and it's really, really meaningful, and it's something I never thought would have came from this. So that's my little spiel, and if you're interested, please see any of us, and we will help you get on that track. With that, thanks again.